Seriously. It's like I hit the record button and my body says, "Oh, why don't you cough for 25 minutes?" Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome. Mm, mm. Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. And today is a Throwback Thursday episode, which I don't think I've done for a while. This was serendipity for me. I have a list of potential Throwback Thursday authors. I chose this one, then discovered that he has a new release coming out very soon. So it just feels like this is the right time to talk about Wally Lamb. So this really is an old author to me, not in his age. I have no idea how old Wally Lamb is, but he's probably at least my age, maybe older. I don't know. But what matters is the first book I ever read by this author was in 1992. So this is really a throwback Thursday for us today. Sometimes men don't write women well. I'm just going to say it. But in this case, Wally Lamb had me at She's Come Undone for sure. It's time for a reread of this one. I remember it being hyped a bit, but I think I read it because a friend of mine chose it as well and said it was really, really good. And I was hooked. This was one that I read very, very quickly. I kind of devoured it and it stuck with me. It stuck with me all these years, which is why I have this horrific looking copy of it, but I just can't get rid of it, although I could probably replace it for something better. I don't even imagine you can get it in hardback anymore unless it's $1,000. Nevertheless, I gave this one 5 stars. This has an average of 3.91 on Goodreads in terms of ratings. I haven't looked at Storygraph, to be quite honest. I will say that this is not for everyone because Dolores Price is 13 when this novel begins, and she's not a particularly likable person at first, and she does some things that really, I think, probably really make people cringe. But let's just go back to when we're 13, right? As women, you know what starts to happen when you're 13. It just all kind of derails for a while, and it feels really, really scary and uncomfortable. And so for Dolores, she satisfies that scary and uncomfortable by overeating. Malamars, potato chips, she just eats everything, everything, everything under the sun. She has no desire to do anything but eat and watch TV until she's 257 pounds as she's entering into her adult life. She's Come Undone is a coming of age novel, but it's also a story about pain. It's also a story about love. And it's also a story about a really, sort of lighthearted, funny heroine. She's really very remarkably funny. And yet, she's going to have to do something before she completely goes down into the depths and she can't recover from it. So Wally Lamb tackles uncomfortable subjects with uncomfortable people. So this one wasn't comfortable, but she was funny as well. I mean, it was just a beautiful book for me. The next one I read is I Know This Much Is True. I thought I had a copy of this. I can't find it, so it probably went the way of the storm because this one came out in 1998. This one is tricky, guys. I gave it 4 stars. It has a better rating than She's Come Undone. This is a very, very difficult novel. However, it's really, really done well. And this was made into a movie adaptation, and it stars Mark Ruffalo. And I can't remember who else, but that's the one actor that I remember the most. I did watch the movie adaptation. It's been so long since I read the book, but I don't remember that I felt like the movie adaptation was better. I don't remember thinking it was horrible, though. I guess I should try to watch it again. Perhaps this is the year I reread I Know This Much Is True, and then I rewatch the adaptation. I really like Mark Ruffalo, so I do remember being happy with that casting. This one is about 2 twin brothers, Thomas and Dominic. Dominic is the character that Mark Ruffalo plays. And they are identical twins and different in many ways, and they have grown up together, obviously. But in October of 1990, the narrator of this book, Dominic, says that my brother Thomas walked into the Three Rivers Library in Connecticut, and he went back into one of these study carrels in the very back of the library, and he prayed to God that the sacrifice he was about to commit would be deemed appropriate and acceptable in God's eyes. I won't say any more than that except to say that this family is rattled by Thomas's choice, and this is a book about it's contemporary literary fiction set in the 90s, so it's no longer really contemporary, but it's about mental health, it's about the psychology of human beings, it's about the relationship of twins. It's just quite well done as I remember, and it was an Oprah pick as well. Whether you like Oprah or not, I just want you to know that it was an Oprah pick because it was very, very hyped and people were reading it like crazy. This one was, it was powerful. Not gonna lie, it was powerful. I have a copy of this one, The Hour I First Believed, which came out in the 2000s. So this one's a little bit more contemporary. I think it came out in 2008. And I remember this because there was something that was difficult that happened in my family in 2008. So this one stands out in my mind. So this one is about a 47-year-old teacher named Calum Quirk and his younger wife, whose name is Maureen. And she's a school nurse, and Calum is a teacher. And they move from Three Rivers, Connecticut, which is the connection to one of the others, to Colorado, to Littleton, Colorado, and they get new jobs there and they are planning to make a future there. Caleb has to return home because he has a relative who's sick. I think it's an aunt, but I'm not, don't quote me on that. But he leaves for a little while to go take care of this family member. And one day gets a call and discovers that Maureen is hiding under a cabinet, scared for her life, in the high school that she works in, which is Columbine High School. I don't have to tell you anything else about that situation because if you live here in the US or know anything about the things that have happened here in the 90s, you will know what occurred at Columbine High School. While she's trying to keep herself alive, Caleb is really upset about obviously what's happening and his inability to do anything and to be there with her. But the book is centered more around what happens next and how does this family try to put themselves back together in different ways. Of course, Maureen having been in the middle of it, that is really challenging her mental health. And then Caleb, meanwhile, finds some things in his family's house that make him recognize that some things occurred that he wasn't aware of. So they're both kind of struggling with these revelations from the past as well as how to look at the future in the wake of this tragedy that happened to his wife, and it was just lovely. However, this one is a doorstop size, 740 pages on this one. The I know this much is true is almost 900 pages. I didn't tell you that, but goodness sakes, yes. And I actually gave this one 5 stars. This was soul crushing, but also a lovely experience because you are in the you get to know these characters, you really get to know their experiences and their recovery. So again, it's a lot of mental health, a lot of forgiveness, and all kinds of other things. The next one I read is We Are Water by Wally. This one was a more recent release as well. This one came out, it was nominated for the Goodreads Award for Reader's Favorite Fiction in 2013. So it came out around 2013. I did notice that. I read this as a library book. I remember talking about this to a few people, so I'm thinking it might have been a book club book, or maybe I just was talking to a few people who knew that I was a fan of Wally Lamb as well. But this one was not my favorite, and I gave it 3 stars. And as I look at the synopsis again, I'm like, how could you not have loved this book? I don't remember why I didn't love this book like I loved the others, but I didn't. So it might be time for a reread for this one too. Yeah. Okay. So Annie, who's been a wife and a mother and an artist for a long, long time, has really turned her family's world upside down by telling them that she's fallen in love with Vivica, who is an art dealer in Manhattan, and they've been working together to sell Annie's art for a long period of time, and they've suddenly discovered that they've fallen in love. and they want to go to Three Rivers, Connecticut to get married because Connecticut has just legalized gay marriage recently. So that, of course, makes sense. I'm familiar with this situation, so I can attest to the fact that this is tricky. It perhaps was a little bit too close to home for me. So that is a possibility that of the reason why I wasn't as fond of this one as some of the others. Again, a need for a reread standing out for me more and more as I talk to you about this. Nevertheless, and this also has Orion's voice. It has a number of voices in this novel, and Orion obviously trying to deal with these changes and support his family and complicated, right, relationship. Then there are twins in this one too, Andrew and Ariane, I think is how you would say it. And they are trying to kind of come to terms with this. All the children kind of react differently. And then there's another child who I think is named Marissa, but don't quote me on that. And Marissa's much more free-spirited. It's probably much more like her mom in the sense that I think she was an artist as well. This one is set in the Obama presidency, in the start of the Obama presidency. It does talk about race and class, and it talks about violence, and it talks about creativity and art, which obviously are easier subjects to take in. But the way that the country was changing and the social mores that were impacted by the election of our first Black president, that was, a big deal. And it did cause some controversy and some challenge. And I think if I remember right, this family was also divided politically, but I could be wrong about that. But I just remember that being a piece of this. I do think it's time for me to go back to this one because goodness knows it could have just been where I was at that time. And I'm trying to think, 2013, what had we been experiencing in 2013 that might have impacted that? But may have just been it wasn't the right time. It may have been that it's a solid 3-star read for me. I don't know. All right, what I'd like to read, I bring this forward every Christmas. And here it sits. This one is when LBJ and Lady Bird are in the White House. And this one is also set in Three Rivers, Connecticut. And this one I would say is a little bit more funny and lighthearted, which is interesting for Wally Lamb because that's not something that he typically does. But he's a great storyteller, and he's a great storyteller of families and family dramas and coming of age. And so that one I'm sure would be nothing less. I say I'm going to read this every Christmas and I don't. Maybe I'm going to read it in July. We'll see. I could. Then there's one that I'm really interested in that I didn't know existed until I started researching Wally Lamb's canon of fiction. He also has a nonfiction book out. It's been out since 2003. Like, how did I miss this? I don't know. I will say I didn't have Goodreads in 2003, I'm pretty sure. And, maybe it just wasn't something that came forward in my library at that time either. But this book is called Couldn't Keep It to Myself, Wally Lamb and the Women of York Correctional Institution. Nonfiction, stunning work of insight and hope is the way that it's billed. And he interviews a number of people who are incarcerated, obviously, in this correctional facility, and he helps them to tell their own stories, and he publishes them. So it says it's a testament to the process of finding oneself and working toward a better day. Sounds really good to me, has 4.10 ratings, and doesn't have a lot of people that have read it. So I think that that's partly why I haven't heard about it, because people aren't reading it and talking about it. Holy cow, this sounds like a great one for me to read. And it's not as long as the novels. It's 350-ish, 370 pages, something like that. It's not crazy big, but what a great thing. So it's true crime essays, biographies of women who are incarcerated. And from what I saw in the few reviews that I read, people are saying they were shocked by this book and how much they liked it because it helped them to understand how women get into these kinds of situations, which I think is important. Having worked in child abuse and neglect, I can tell you that a lot of the moms that I was working with had lost custody of their kids because they were incarcerated or because they were not able to come out of incarceration and return to a life that would have been better suited for their children. There's a complicated history of why these things happen, because I think the more I learn about this, the more I grow and develop as a human. So that's why I think I might want to get to this one and find it somewhere. Let me know if you've heard of this one, because this is news to me. It was originally called Couldn't Keep It to Myself, Wally Lamb and the Women of York Correctional Institution, semicolon, testimonies from our imprisoned sisters. I think that was a lot longer of a title than most people probably needed it to be. So it's a little bit shorter. No less interesting. And that cover, fascinating cover. I can't wait to see it like in real life. So I'll be looking for that one for sure. All right. And the last one I'm bringing forward to you today is like, I had no idea this was happening. When I chose this and I started researching what I had read and what I had not read, I was stunned. Stunned. The River is Waiting by Wally Lamb is releasing on May 6th, 2025. Cheers. For those of you who love Wally Lamb. Cheers. All right, I am in for this one. It's been a while. It's new. May 2025. Yes, please. It has few ratings and reviews, but it already has a 4.50 rating. This is fiction. It is also contemporary, literary fiction, as Wally Lamb is basically known for. This is about Corby Ledbetter, who has lost his job. He's a new father. He's trying to adjust to those things, and he's also secretly addicted and using something. I don't know what it is. And his wife finds out about all these things, and his whole life just sort of turns into tragedy. And he ends up doing something that tears his family apart. And whatever it is that he does, which probably isn't a stretch for us to figure out, lands him in prison. He struggles on the inside of the prison to try to adapt to a lot of violence, a lot of behaviors that he's not ever experienced in his life, and brutality that's very, very scary to him as well. But he also starts to notice that there are small ways in which people are kind and they are connected, as many people in prison will tell you. And in fact, some people tell you that when they leave prison, one of the challenges is that they are not with their prison family, who they've become very close to, because they're very isolated. They don't have other things to distract them like we do with friendships. It's very deep and really solid friendships that occur there. So he begins to try to feel like that mercy and reconciliation might be possible to him with his family. And can he really ever come out of this in a different way? And can they ever forgive him? This will be on my must-buy list for the year. I probably will also be trying to find ways to curate the copies of the books of Wally Lambs that I lost in the storm. I may pick up the nonfiction one too, or I will search for it and see if it's available in my library. I would be curious. But thank you for watching this today. Thank you for joining me for this step into Wally Lamb. If you've never heard of him or read anything by him, or perhaps it's just a reminder for you that Wally Lamb is an author that you also read, and maybe it's time for you to pick up The River is Waiting, or the book about the women who are incarcerated, which has a very, very long title, and I won't say it again. But I'm really hoping that some of you find this to be an author that you want to take a look at, or that you have enjoyed as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being with me for another Throwback Thursday. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you're reading now. And if you'd like to let me know you're here, but you don't have a comment, just go ahead and pop in your favorite emoji in the chat. I will let you choose which one of the emojis that you would like to choose, and bonus points that are irrelevant, but they're fun, if you choose something that's related to one of the Wally Lamb books that I've talked about today. So thanks again for joining me today, and as always, happy reading. Bye.